Hello and welcome to Covenant Couples, and I'm Chris Boyce.
And I'm Sharon Boyce.
And I really look forward to bringing this interview with you. So today we're going to talk about the topic of the Hebrew perspective of marriage. And I'm so excited to be able to bring on my friends, Daniel Jedediah Cook and Michelle Cook. So good to see you both again. Thank you for joining us today on this episode, the Hebrew perspective of marriage. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you guys. We miss you guys.
I miss you guys too. I've been so looking forward to this topic and so looking forward to talking about this with you both. We did once interview you a little while ago, about a year or so ago now, and I love the fact that during that interview that this topic did come up, and I watched it again only a little while ago, and I thought I would just so love to get my friends on and see if we can just really explore this, this topic in a bit more depth together. But just if you could just share a tiny little bit about yourselves, just for anybody that maybe not seen the last episode or met you both before. Just give us a little bit of an intro, and then we'll get into this amazing topic together.
Okay. Well, my name is Daniel Jedediah Cook, and we have a ministry that teaching the Hebrew Living Letters, and so we're excited about that. We've been doing this for about 5 years now, and I've got beside me my beautiful bride Michelle, and she's the one who writes the daily Hebrew declarations. Some of you may be in our daily Hebrew declarations group, Facebook group, and if you are, she's actually the author of all of those. And so, do you have anything to say?
The only thing I wanted to say is, I know I'm the author of them, but it comes out of the overflow of what Yeshua and are come together as. And when I come in before him and sit at his feet, these are things that I get from him and glean from him. I love doing the living letters with my husband. It's every year is a new perspective. So I know we said we've been doing it for 5 years, but it's just a new perspective every time that we go through it. It doesn't matter, because the letters are living.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm rocking my new Living Letters shirt. So
that's awesome. I want one.
You want one?
Yeah, the letters are on the back. All the letters that you see behind us on the tapestry.
yeah, they're also on the back, but I'm not going to turn around right now. So that's okay.
Well, let's talk about this wonderful topic, marriage. And I want to take it from the perspective of, in the beginning, God created Adam and Eve in the beginning, and he marriage was always first and foremost in his heart when he created them. And, I love looking at from that perspective. And, Sharon and I have even done a topic together on intimacy, using the garden and their walk with God as that pattern for intimacy and what God wants in marriage. So, but I'd love to just really explore this topic with you both from the perspective of the Hebrew Living Letters and the perspective of marriage itself, because it's such an incredible depth and a richness. And I shared with you both just before I went online now with you, was that, God really spoke to me with the Hebrew letter Chet. And I'd love to talk to you about that. But first, I just want to hear from you both on what you believe, like how you see the perspective of the Hebraic mindset of marriage.
I think it's a great question. I remember years ago, there was a pastor that I think many people know who I'm speaking about. It really had an impact on me, and that was Kenneth Copeland. And he was speaking about faith, but in this particular issue, or this particular time, he was also speaking about the connection of Adam and Eve. And what he had said was that what he believed was that when God put Adam to rest, put him to sleep, and he pulled the woman from, or the rib from the side. At least that's the way we've always heard it. We've always heard it was the rib pulled from the side. But really, if we go back to Genesis chapter 1, we find that in Genesis chapter 1, on the sixth day, it said that he created male and female. Created he them. He created him in his own likeness and image. And the Father is neither male nor female, and yet male and female at the same time. And he created Adam to be that as well. At the time, I don't know if he knew, or if just maybe it was just me that I didn't know, but there is a concept in Hebrew that talks about Adam Kadmon. Adam Kadmon was the original Adam, if you will, this Adam that was a part of this male and female created he them. And then when God put him to sleep, he didn't just pull the rib out to form woman from that. What he did was removed the feminine out of Adam and created woman from that other part. And so it's funny. If I was in the medical field for 22 years, and if you really go back to the place of hormones and that sort of thing, the fact is that men have testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone inside their bodies. And now it's preponderance of testosterone, obviously, because of the being men. And then with the ladies, there's estrogen and progesterone with a minimal amount of testosterone. So it really, even scientifically, goes back to prove that there was a time that we were together as one, because we share some of those core concepts. So in the place where man and woman come back together again, if you will, a man finds his soulmate and a woman finds her soulmate, that they connect back together one, and they really rejoin as one, and the two shall become one flesh, is what the scripture says. I love this because actually a very deep Hebrew perspective is that we are formed in the heavens, in the heavenlies, in the Father himself, as both male and female, and as we come down, we're separated. Okay. And there's the soulmate. There's this place of the connection as we find our soulmate, and when we come back together, it really truly is a beautiful picture of becoming one in that place. So it's really just the fulfillment of the word of the Lord, because see, even in this perspective of marriage, he's also talking about us and him. He's just showing it to us through a very simple perspective of marriage, and how our relationship is with him and each other. So, when we say that we need to take care of our brides, our wives, our husbands, as just as the Christ loved the church, and so on. There's a beautiful connection in that basically I'm taking care of my own body. We're two coming back together as one. So it's I could go even deeper than that, but I'll stop right there. What are your thoughts?
No, I was thinking the the Hebrew thing that I like the most about is I think about a wedding, and because a wedding is a heightened emotional thing between a man and a woman, and you're already you're becoming one. You know what I'm saying? But I love the Hebrew fact that they want to put a huppah, and the huppah is, to me, is just what's the word? It's similarly like that Yahweh is covering that marriage. Yahweh is covering the spirit of Yahweh is covering that marriage and that intimacy and that becoming one. And it means so much more than that, the huppah does. But I love that concept of how the Hebrew always makes sure that that's a part of the wedding ceremony. But there was something you were saying about Kenneth Copeland, but did you finish that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay. I missed that part. I jumped over or something. Anyway,
he was the one I first heard it from.
Oh, okay.
Was him. And then later on discovered it was actually a very deep Hebrew perspective.
Oh, okay.
Wow. That's awesome.
I mean, in the letter that you suggested, Het, because it's the crowned man and the Vav, it's the Vav and the Zayin together.
Yep.
It's the man and the crowned man, which coming together underneath, and I feel like underneath the huppah, when you look at the letter, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of covering like that. So, but I mean, I know that Het means a lot more like your hands, open palms, and that. No, that's called. I'm getting confused. Ket.
That's okay. We'll hold off for right now. I think Chris wanted to bring that up, so we'll talk about that.
Well, I was just
you'll
saying
get a chance.
I believe that word belongs with the marriage. You know
Yeah,
what
it
I'm saying?
does.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to read from Hebrews.Christians.com right now because I just love this. I absolutely even thought blew me away. Just one of the iterations of the way it's presented. And I'm going to actually put it on screen so that, people can see why I'm actually quoting this, because I just thought this was amazing the way this was represented. And I'm like, oh, no wonder the Father wanted me to draw on this, because it's just beautiful the way they put it together. I'm just referring to that bit at the top because I've always seen het always in the way people normally think of it. Like when they're first starting to learn about this stuff, guys, they don't, maybe like me, they don't necessarily realize there's a representation of the top here where you've got like almost like the swords that you see in the military ceremonies. That really blew me away. But some of the thing that I really it just really blessed me reading about this, was that where it says, according to the Jewish mystics, Chet is the letter of life. And so so true life comes from this. Since Vav represents people or others and Zion represents time, Chet is a picture of spending time in community. Chet is also the letter of light, since the Vav represents the Yasha light that descends from God, and Zayin represents the chosen light, sorry if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, that ascends or returns to God. Therefore, some of the Jewish mystics consider Chet to be the doorway of light from heaven. And I absolutely something just really ministered to me about that. And then, of course, we've got the Gematria, which is, the Vav is 6, the Zion is 7. And this is all new for me, guys. This really blessed me this morning. What would be 13, the same value as Ahava, love. And it's like also the value for Echad, 1. Putting these ideas together, we can see that love unifies us in true fellowship, just as the Messiah Yeshua taught us. The reason why this jumped out at me, because I've actually said that fellowship begins in marriage. It is what marriage is all about, and just understand. And there's another page that I won't go to, but it talks about passion, and it talks about how passion is great, but you also need the fire of God to keep the marriage alive. And it also talks about that time you spend together, because like I've become aware of some friends whose marriages are crumbling, and you think, why? Because and then you wonder, well, is that passion is there, sure, but what about the fire? And what they draw out from that is that spending time together, because the fire has to be stoked. And I love that analogy, because you've got to spend time together. You've got to spend time in fellowship with each other. I mean, people giggle when I say this to them, but I kid you not, I walked up to my wife one day, gave her a hug, gave her a kiss, and said, I just extended the kingdom of God. Because that is what the kingdom of God for me is really all about. It's how it began. And I've said this before, Daniel and Michelle, healthy marriages mean healthy churches. You can't have healthy churches without healthy marriages. That's just the way that I believe that it is, So I would love to hear you both talk to us about het in the context of marriage, because I want to draw on the depth of your wisdom, both of you, and your knowledge in this area. If I could draw on that together with you.
Done now.
No, I was going to let you finish. It was good. It was good what you were saying. Yeah, het is a letter that I've always seen as not only just a marriage letter. Of course, you can see by the way that it's shaped that you can see the if you will, like the swords. You know what? I've never seen that perspective before. That's the first one for me, and I love that perspective in the honor and the glory of walking through in marriage, and as if you will, soldiers standing side by side with their swords in the air, and as a triumphal entry into that place. That's a really cool. One of the ways that's seen from a Hebrew perspective is that it's a yoke, and it's a yoke that binds the two, or a bridge that binds the two together. And so this yoke is not a heavy yoke. And that's when the scripture talks about my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's because it's talking about that yoke of covenant, the yoke of promise. And just like what you were talking about in the place of passion and the heart of passion, when two come together in marriage, it's a covenant, and it's a contract, if you will, between the two. And I love it from a Hebrew perspective because it's even more so a covenant and a contract than it is even from the Western way that we've always done that. From a Jewish perspective, what happens is that a man and a wife come together and they literally write a contract. There's a place where it's written out, and the husband says, "These are the things that I'm going to do," and the wife comes in and writes, "These are the things that I'm going to do," and the two of them will write this just before the wedding, and there are witnesses that go along with this. So they have this ketubah, which is the marriage contract that's written ahead of time. And it talks about a lot of different things, not just the typical vows that from the Western side or the Western way that we've always looked at it. It's much, much deeper than that.
Okay.
But it's speaking of a place, not necessarily a business transaction either. I'm talking about the place of the promises of taking care of that I will provide a home, that I will provide food and that sort of things, to make sure that we have the ability to be able to have children and to grow and that sort of thing. So those, and she promises to do some things as well in the midst of all of that. And I think it's a very personal thing that is put together. But once that's done, then they begin the process of the actual wedding itself. And part of that wedding, like what Michelle was talking about earlier, is the chuppah, or more commonly pronounced as huppah. But it begins with the living letter chet. Huppah begins with the living letter chet.
Cool.
And it's a place where it's, if you will, like a covering, and they take a talit and they place it over the heads of the married couple, and they stand up underneath that and they complete the wedding ceremony underneath that huppah. And it portrays that place of the two of us joining together underneath the covering, if you will, the batzal, the shadow of the Almighty. Think about it that way, because it produces a shadow over the husband and wife, and it's signifying that place of coming under the shadow of the Almighty as well. And so it's a beautiful perspective. And there's some additional things that happen during the wedding. But the marriage itself is a really I mentioned it earlier. It's a type and a shadow of our relationship with the Father. Or better yet, I know those are the old terms that we used to use with type and shadow. But the truth is that Father's been messing with me for a while now about this place of becoming illumination, becoming luminaries, becoming a conduit of his light, of his love, and of his glory. And truth be told, a marriage that has placed God as their head and has moved up underneath the chuppah of the Father is in a place where they're stating, we are ones that choose to open up ourselves. We let, if you will, the veil of our flesh be torn. You see, that's probably one of the hardest things to do in marriage. Is especially early on. I mean, Michelle and I were cats and dogs when we first got married. I'm just telling the truth. Well, because it was getting used to one another. There was selfishness. There was, at least in my part, and I'm not going to say whether it is on her, because if not, I'll probably get a backhand on the back of the head. I'll take the blame for that one. But that in that place that we grew from that, and because we loved each other, we knew that Father had put us together, and without a doubt we were going to see this thing through. And it was a few years of difficulty, but we made it through. And not to say that it's all peaches and cream. Even now, there's still times when things are tough. There's still times when we don't always see the eye. But that's the beauty of it, because Father's taught us how that I can honor her perspective. Yes. I can take off my crown and place it on my wife and say, honey, I need to hear the word of the Lord that you are talking about. I choose not to have the right to respond, and I want to hear what it is that you are saying here, and then honor that. And then she does the same with me. She takes off her crown and places it on my head and says, okay, I need to be quiet in this. I want to hear what the Lord is saying to you. And it just gives us an opportunity to really just portray that love in a deeper way, because we're two sides of the same coin. We're soulmates that have come back together and portraying that and glorifying and illuminating the light of the Father through that place. So it's just a walk through that. But chet, with this yoke, it's really speaking about the place of that covenant and promise, and it's not meant to be a hard thing. Matter of fact, I remember asking the Lord about this years ago, and I used to think that obedience was the yoke.
Okay.
And Father said, wait a minute, there's something even deeper than obedience, and that is choice. You first have to choose to obey before you'll ever obey in the first place. He said, truth is that yoke is a yoke of choice. And so in that place where we choose to yoke and to covenant together, then we operate in a place where we become a portal and a doorway. I love that, because actually the gematria of chet is 8. But when you take the vav and the zayin, like you were talking about earlier, you come up with the 13. And the 6 and the 7 together are the 13, which are equal to a hava and echad.
Yes.
But and I love that, because that just adds to the definition of what the chet actually stands for. But if you take the 3 and the 1 and add it together, you also have 4. And the dalet is number 4. So 4 is the door. So now once again, you have this portal and this entryway into what? Chet is the first letter of the Hebrew word chai, which means life. Wow. And so it speaks not only of the life of the Father in us, but we had some married couples that we were ministering to and spending some time with probably about 6 months ago or 3-4 months ago, something like that. And awesome folks. And I remember talking to them about this place of about life, and in particular how, if you really stop to think about it, when a man and woman come together and in the consummation of a marriage, then it's meant to bring about life. And when life is brought about as a result of that consummation, then really we are the most like God right then than we are any other time. Because two have come together, and you've got two total opposites. You've got the one on the male side, the one on the female side. They come together and they create a whole new life and a new creature. You see what I'm saying? So it's not, now we're nothing without him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we're gods ourselves, but it really struck me when I began to realize we are most like the Father, in that when a husband and wife comes together and have children, the legacy, the heritage, the passing down, if you will, of who we are is passed on to our children. And it's a beautiful thing. So the Chai speaks about that life as well. But then, of course, we also have Chaye Olam, or everlasting life, the everlasting life that Yeshua gave us through his death on the cross. So there's so much more here, but I'll probably need to stop right there. But you can see how Chet begins to touch in so many different ways, and we've only scratched the surface of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And like when in our previous interview, you brought up Moshe, and you talked about how he, God wanted to be married to his people. That's just such a whole wonderful topic to explore. And I'd love to, but I just want to talk to marriage from the context of a man and a woman for a little bit longer, because I absolutely just loved how you brought out, the both of you, about the crown, and it's something that the Lord really deepened our marriage in, and really began to help me explore, the depths of that. And what I mean by that is I actually did go before the Lord one day and said, look, I reckon I'm a pretty good husband, but I want to be the kind of husband that you see, So I started to really seek him about that. And And I really began to learn from him. And I began to understand, we come from different perspectives. And, like I'm going to quote your amazing teaching, when you spoke about Yahweh and the diamond and the different perspectives. And I love that when you honor your wife, when you want to hear from your wife, when you put that crown upon her, you're looking at another perspective of Yahweh right there. As soon as you've chosen to do that. And I think that, it is such a rich, beautiful thing to be able to do. And it's, for us men, well, I'll speak about myself. I'm pretty good at defending myself. So, I had to learn to zip it for a start. I had to learn that, maybe I could be wrong for another. And, that's actually a good thing, it doesn't come easy. And men are not very good at being vulnerable, and that takes humility in itself. And that's something that I really found has been a real blessing and a real depth in our marriage. And I'd just like to ask my wife if she could just share some of her perspective on, marriage from what we've been talking about. What would you like to share, Shane?
Yeah, well, going back to what you were saying, Daniel, about how all the Hebrew letters seem to all come back to one thing, which is marriage. And it's like saying that God has to be in your marriage for it to be fruitful, really.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think in a lot of the younger people today, they don't have that. And they tend to leave God out of the marriage. And when they, as you said, when you were first married, you had issues. Everybody has issues. Everybody has getting to know each other. And you have obviously different ideas, different personalities. And I think with a lot of the younger couples, they don't go through that. They go through it, but they don't keep going through it. And they kind of destroys their marriage because they don't have that connection with God. And if you have God in the marriage, it will help you go through that marriage, and it'll help you connect better, and it will help you fulfill what you're there for. And that's why there's so many divorces and separations today, even when you have children, because they just don't have that connection within each other anymore.
It sort of comes to what I was talking about before, how, when you first get married, you're full of passion. You're just so excited to be married, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But you got to stoke that fire, and you got to maintain that fire. And that's one of the things that I've said is that, if you're not careful, if it becomes all about your career, or if it becomes all about your kids, you can slowly but surely end up married singles.
Yes.
And I think that's a danger in itself. And I've seen couples stay together for the kids, and then the kids leave home, and you're like, I can't remember who you are almost. Maybe that was a little dramatic, but I just, Sharon's point, you rob yourself when you don't make Christ the center of your marriage. You really are robbing yourself of an incredible blessing, because, he's going to help you walk through those things where you just, I've just got to zip it, or I've just got to embrace my wife when she's getting a little bit annoyed with me because I've probably done a silly thing.
Irritated.
Or irritated. Yeah, we'll go there. We can use that word, right? That's okay. We can use that word because that happens, right? And I think that was one of the key things that he really taught me was, like understanding. It's not up to me to change how my wife feels. It's not up to me to make her feel joyful if she's sad. It's up to me to embrace what she's experiencing. And that wasn't easy for me. But I tell you what, there is such a beauty and a richness and a depth to that. And it really does build your oneness together.
Yeah. And also with a lot of the young families too, because all they're worried about is their jobs. And a lot of the partners, either the man and the woman, are working away. They're working like they fly in and fly out jobs, which means they're not together when they're first married. So they kind of don't get to know each other as well together. And because half the time the man's working away, the woman's at home with the children, and then when the man comes back, it's like, well, he has to fit back into the family. And when you're first young and married, that doesn't always work, because the woman, the mother, has actually got the kids into a routine, and she's got everything in place for her. And then when the husband comes back, it all changes. And they're irritated with each other because they're not working together. And I think people who are looking for high-paying jobs, working away, it's very hard on a young family, which is very popular now because people are all looking for high-paying jobs because they want everything now.
And that's why, you know, like our encouragement to young couples, any couple really, is, you know, to approach your marriage from this perspective, because when Christ is the center of your marriage, you do want to stoke that fire. You do want to make that time for each other. It's amazing how when we make him our priority, he shifts our priorities. I've just seen it happen time and time again. You know, like the couple that are taken over from us, and I will feature them at the end of this interview. I could just see that right from the moment I met them, that Christ really is the center of their marriage, and they shared themselves as well too, right? You know, they navigated through a lot too in the early years of their marriage, because, you know, two different people coming from a different perspective, different background, maybe even a different upbringing, is going to present challenges. And I, you know, when I first became a Christian, I always interpreted the scripture, iron sharpens iron, in a negative way. That's not what it means, whatever. Iron sharpens iron means it sparks life. It brings life. It's meant to bring life. Every opportunity, every challenge in marriage is meant to present with you an opportunity for growth and becoming closer and deeper together. And I just feel like, you know, like that should be the focus. How can I learn through this? That's why humility brings honor, because how can I learn from this? You know, how can I maybe, you know, listen to what my wife's saying and take it on board, because there might be some wisdom in there for me to learn. You know, that doesn't come naturally or easy in a marriage when you first get married, does it?
No.
You know,
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And I wanted to say another thing too. I realized, and this is just coming from a woman's point of view, and the fact that I've always loved Yahweh, and He's always been a big part of my heart, and so and that I've always trusted in Him. But I learned, one of the things I learned at growing together with my husband in the things, I had to learn to trust the Yahweh in Him, and I had to learn to hear it first, because you can't just, you know, just because you hear Him, you can't think it's just your husband, but you have to learn to know that that's the voice of the Father, and then also trust in that, as a woman's point of view for that, as, you know, for the marriage. And I'm telling you, I know for a fact, a couple of years ago when this happened to me, and it completely flipped for me to where it was that way, because there was a while where it wasn't. I couldn't hear Yahweh in Him. Every time He spoke and He said it was the Lord, I couldn't believe it, you know, that kind of stuff. But and that was about 10 years ago, but or more. And but what I'm saying, no, I know, but I'm just saying, but the last 5 years or 6 years, I've learned to hear the Father's voice for myself first, just in our relationship, you know, mine and His relationship. And then once I did that, I was able to start hearing the voice of the Father in Him, and He speaks, you know, and I know it's the voice of the Father. I you know, I sit up and listen, you know, I'm like, okay, well, let's forge ahead. So
yeah.
Well, that's really powerful, Michelle. I love these gold nuggets that come out when we get to interview tonight. That's awesome, man. I don't know how to respond to that, except wow.
I kind of want to go back to something that Sharon said just a moment ago, because, you know, I think it's key. And I hate that the church has actually put a bad picture on the truth, because, you know, religions, I shouldn't say the church, but religion has given really marriage a bad name, because it's all been about all of these rules and regulations and there's so many things to overcome, and that religion, when, you know, being stuck in a place of religion where everything's a right or a wrong, I mean, if you burp in church, you're in trouble, kind of thing, you know. And so you know, how much more so when it comes to you know, ones who love the Lord and want to do right, when in home, when if you will, both are literally and figuratively laid bare and laid naked in front of one another, and I'm talking about not necessarily just in the physical sense, but also in the emotional and the spiritual sense, because when you live together with someone, you're opening yourself up. They begin to know all of your little quirks and your little attitudes, and your little things where you don't flush the toilet after you get done, or you lift the seat up or you don't lift the seat up, or whatever the case may be. All the toothbrush in the wrong cup, or the all those little things suddenly begin to be a part of that. And what was normal for one ends up being something completely different for the other. And it causes a lot of issues, and then fighting on the inside, this place of not feeling like we're meeting up with the picture that was given us of who we're supposed to be in the Father, because we got mad at one another and started yelling at each other, and maybe even said some things that we really didn't mean in the midst of all of that, because of passion and anger or fear rising up. And I really hate that, especially for the young ones, because the religion has not done a very good job of really expressing the truth of relationship. And so even the one biggest thing that I would speak to a new couple is really that place of learning how to overcome every challenge, including the challenges of leaving the seat up versus leaving the seat down, or flushing the toilet when you're done, or putting the toothbrush in the right cup or the wrong cup, or whatever it is. All of those things are challenges to do what? They're challenges that help us to overcome something. We find that we have someone we love, and we want to do what they want, but then sometimes there's compromise in that. But we want to show them in every way that we can that we love them, and not then have to leave and feel like I've been berated or been put down because I've not quite met them. I'm talking about just on a personal level, not from each other. I'm just on the personal level between us and God. So one of the things that I know the Father has spoken to us about is the place of overcoming, and realizing how important that each one of us are. When I say she is my other half, I need her. There are things that she is strong in, and I need to submit to her in those things where she is strong. And then she needs to submit to me in the areas where I'm strong. I've never been a man that's always been, submit, woman, submit, never been like, ask her in the 37 years that we've been married, never done that, not even once, except joking. Every once in a while I'll joke.
I was going to say, he does joke about it.
I do joke about it, but it's a joke. And she knows it. But it's that place of where it's an equal honor. I remember years ago someone telling us, marriage should be 50-50. Nope. It should never be 50-50. It shouldn't even be 51-49 because of the whole it's 100.
Yeah, that's right.
Period. Exactly. It's 100. Both equally trying, equally giving all for the other as we come together and begin to grow from that place. And I think in that place we begin to realize, and others begin to see that place that even if we mess up, that's the whole thing about overcoming. It's okay if I mess up and I don't do it quite right. I'll have another chance where I can go back and try that again. And because I'm learning, it's a step-by-step process of learning. And so if there was any one thing that I would say to new couples, is just that realize that marriage is meant to be 100, and that in this place where I know that it's especially tough early on when you're first married and you got the jobs, you got the kids, you got this, all these other parts of the relationship, and all these things that are going on, that there's a place of overcoming even those difficulties, even those difficult times, and do like Abraham did with Sarah. I love this because in Genesis it speaks about Abraham and Sarah, and right there a couple of weeks ago there was a Torah portion called Chaye. There we go, the Chet again, Chaye Sarah, and it was talking about the life of Sarah, and what happened in this was that during the time of where many believe that the scripture said it was the weaning party, meaning that Yitzhak had been weaned from Sarah. But others believe that necessarily wasn't the weaning of him coming from, no longer being on his mother's milk, but really it was the bar mitzvah. And the first bar mitzvah was that. So this would say that Yitzhak was or Isaac was 13 years old at that time, and but during this party that was going on, she looked over and saw Hagar laughing about what was going on, because Hagar was like, no, Ishmael is the firstborn. Isaac was not the firstborn. He was the secondborn. And of course the father had said, no, it's Isaac. Through Isaac your seed shall be. And when Sarah saw her laughing and jesting about all of this stuff, this was the second time, by the way, Hagar had done that she said, go get Abraham and get her out of here. Send her away. And Abraham didn't listen. He was like, no, I love Ishmael too much. I'm not going to be doing that, until he walks away and the Lord speaks to him. He says, you do what Sarah says. You do what Sarah told you to do. I'll take care of the boy, and I'm going to make a great nation out of him, but I'll take care of the boy. And so Abraham went back and said, okay. And he sent out Hagar and Ishmael from the camp, from that place. But every time I hear that story, I always think about that place of there's times that I need to how is it that you want to do it? My mom had our 80th birthday, and my wife was the key of putting a lot of that together. And so when it came down to the party itself, even though she was my mother, I submitted to my wife and said, okay, what is it that you need me to do? How do you need me to help? I gave her pointers along the way, and I even said some things, said, hey, do we have to have this or do we have to have that? And she said, yes, we need it. So I was like, okay, I'll leave it with you. And so it's that equal honor of both, because
I stopped as well and asked you to, because I wanted you to be honored in that. That was his mom. And I'm like, if you want me to, I'll just turn things over to you, or, I'll let you make some decisions on some things and stuff. And so to me, I would have laid it all down, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, at wherever I was at, because I wanted to honor him as well. So.
Okay, so
well, I think it's cool, and I want to wrap up with this, because a little bit later on, Sarah dies, and when she dies, there's a part of the scripture there where for the Hebrew word for cry. Don't ask me what it is. I don't remember what it is right now off the top of my head. But but I know there's a cough in that letter, the living letter cough, and which is the 11th of the Hebrew living letters. And it kind of looks like a backward C, and it's small. And so many have asked the question, well, why was the cough small in the Hebrew word for cry? Is it trying to say that Abraham just cried little for the death of his wife? Now, you got to remember that these guys have been together for well over 100 years. They had been married for 100 years. And of course, they had gone through so much barrenness up to the point where Sarah finally does have Isaac, and so it's a beautiful story set, and he loved her very much. You could see all kinds of different places in scripture where he said that she was his sister because she was such a beautiful woman, and Abraham really loved her. So I got a hard time thinking that when Sarah dies that Abraham cried little. You see what I'm saying? I have a hard time with that. But if you look at the living letter cough, it's like a tiara. It's like a crown. And it's the crown specifically because the wife is meant to be the crown of the husband. She's the glory of the husband. And what that word for cry there was saying wasn't that Abraham cried little, but that his crown was diminished now that she was gone. She had been his glory, and his crown in the earth was now diminished because she was gone. That just opens up a whole, thank you, Holy Spirit, for giving all those that are listening right now the picture of what that would mean, because that's the heart of the true heart of honor and respect. And Abraham recognized, I'm not going to be the same after this, because wife Sarah is no longer with me. So
Yeah.
there's honor in the place of that crown that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
I love that. Well, for me, the first thing that's popping up in my mind is honoring each other's strengths, and we had a moment, the other day where we were getting ready for our home fellowship, and my wife was in Martha mode, and I've learnt the hard way now. Let her be in her Martha mode and see how I can help and assist. Even though I am a professional cook by trade, so that took some humility and swallowing of pride. And I went to go, look, my wife's in Martha mode. I need to either help her, make helpful suggestions, or get out of her way. So I did that, and I'm not trying to make light of this, guys. I know that sounded humorous, but it's just a real life example of I'm still learning, and like the whole idea of honoring. I just really want to draw on that because we had our home fellowship not long ago, and we love and embrace single people that come along, and they do. But this particular home fellowship, my friend Jody, who's single, said, look, I don't know why, brother, but I just feel like I'm not meant to come. And I thought, that's a bit odd. And she says, you'll know why on the day. And we had another friend of ours who wanted to come, was really looking forward to come, and she cancelled and says, I'm really, really sorry, Chris, but I've forgotten. I've double booked myself. And then I looked at the people and it's all married couples.
All couples.
What are you up to, Lord? I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know what. And so on the day, we found ourselves setting our table in a Shabbat style meal. And we actually had it with communion style elements as well. And I was really strongly prompted by the Lord to put a talit on my wife's head. So I crowned her. And I also anointed her with oil. And I found myself saying, I've always wondered what the Bible means when it says that man is the glory of God and woman is the glory of man. And I literally said that as I anointed my wife. And I said that this is what it means. That is what it means. She is my glory. And it was just so profound. And the others did it. And then I went even deeper, and then I even went beyond that, because the Lord's really, really been speaking to me quite a lot about his bride, and he's been talking about how he's calling her forth in us. I never saw it like that before, but it's just, for me, I just want to treasure Yeshua in her. I want to see Yeshua in her. I want to honor Yeshua in her. Sometimes when Yeshua comes forth in her, it's it can be challenging to me sometimes, and that's growth, but it's just understanding. And just really just want to circle back, if I could, to the comment that you made about allowing each other to know each other. And it's not just about physical nakedness, because when Sharon and I did intimacy in marriage, I really felt prompted by the Lord to highlight this revelation that he gave me. They were naked and yet not ashamed. And okay, you can understand that on a purely literal basis, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it goes a lot deeper than that. Because what the Lord was showing me was that they fully knew each other inside and out, and they were not ashamed. And sadly, because of the fall, that they became self-conscious. So their God-conscious, their God-focusedness had diminished greatly. And so that's what the Lord was showing me, in who I am in you, that is there, that comes back. And so that's something that I really treasure, if I can put it like that, because I would say this is the Hebrew perspective of marriage right there, is understanding that as a man, I am doing myself a great favor by being vulnerable, like really allowing my wife to journey with me in everything. And I really just want to bring this up because I've seen men destroy themselves because they will not be vulnerable. They will not let their wives know how they're really going. Their dads taught them to tough it out, or, you don't cry or anything like that. And I really just wanted to draw that out because I am honoring my wife when I'm being vulnerable, when I'm being naked. And I'm not just talking about physical nakedness again. When I'm choosing to be naked, making that choice, I am being honorable, and I am honoring her because I'm allowing her. And that whole idea of her wisdom, man, my wife's got some wisdom. And I'll tell you what, I've said this before, that, it's a beautiful thing to honor that and to acknowledge that, and go, you know what, Sharon, we're going with that. We're going with that. And I've done that quite a few times. And I think a man does himself a great favor when he realizes that, you know, God placed his wife in his life, you know, for such a time as that, to listen to that and to go with that, you know. And I love what you said about how religion has done us such a great disservice, because when we see marriage from his perspective, when we understand the perspective that of marriage and how he has it, it just brings life. I mean, our whole ministry birthed from us as a married couple. That's what he showed us last year. We were ready to give up on all this. We were ready to walk away from it. We'd been through a tough season, and I really felt like that's what he was showing us. No, I birthed this through you as a married couple. And so that's why I was totally blown away early this year. And I in the media world, we call this a segue, because early this year I come across a couple, and we had decided we're not doing covenant couples anymore. We're not doing church anymore. We're not doing nothing anymore. And one of the things that God brought back to us was covenant couples. And we were blown away by how he did this, because this couple that we met, we just felt just such an incredible connection with them. And then we prayed over them, and I prayed over them. And as soon as I prayed over them, I saw this incredible light. I saw Jesus standing in front of the cross. That's why that background's behind us, by the way. I wanted to honor the Lord and what he showed me, in that, you know, he is the doorway of life, and marriage is the portal. That's what he designed marriage to be.
Yes.
That's why we're so passionate about covenant couples. And I feel very privileged that, you know, the Lord has brought this couple along, because we can only do so much, you know. And so we're training them, we're equipping them, we're helping them, and they're going to keep a podcast going. But more than that, they're very much a part of what we're doing now.
Yes.
And just,
awesome.
you know, and they've navigated their way through quite a bit together. And I'm just going to do a little promo. And I wanted to share this with you. So their name is Simon and Geraldine Parkinson. I hope I've got that right.
Yes.
And they are just such a beautiful couple. And I just wanted to share this intro with you, and then just come back to the interview. So I'll remove both of us first and just share the interview. Sorry, the promo.
Hi, I'm Simon. This is my beautiful blessing from God, Geraldine.
I'm Geraldine.
Thank you, Danny. We're part of Covenant Couples, part of Authentic Voices, and we're going to be sharing our hearts, sharing our love for each other, our love for Jesus, who's brought us together and built us as a couple through many trials and tribulations. The Lord's always been our rock and is always at the center of our marriage, guiding us and shaping us and powering us on together.
That's right. And we just want to encourage couples, especially Christian couples, to help them be a strength for each other as a husband and wife, but also just to give examples of our own experiences, our own lives that we've experienced. We've been married for 8.5 years, and it's been, like Simon said, trials and tribulations, but we've come out stronger, and we just love each other so much. And even, you know, we've gone through so many things in our lives, that not just in our marriage, but even beforehand, that has contributed into a successful marriage. So thank you so much for having this opportunity to speak to you and to share our hearts. And hopefully when you come on board and you listen to our story and able to strengthen you in your walk with God, with your spiritual walk, and as a couple, that we need to have strong couples so we don't have this divorce rate that we have in Australia and the nation. So we just want to bless you. We just want to pour out our love for you, and we are here for you.
And our heart is really for married couples, also for singles that are waiting on God, waiting for the right partner, and not to step ahead of God, but just to follow step by step with God, and to share his love for each other and for the love of God.
Yeah, and we just hope that we can inspire you to wait for the right partner, for the right husband, the right wife, so that you can be successful from the get-go. And I'm not saying that, things are going to be smooth to start out with, because we weren't smooth, but we just got to know the heart of God for us, because he has blessed us in marriage. It's a covenant thing. It's when two people meet and they have that covenant with each other, that vow towards one another, God will bless it. So no matter what, keep going, keep in the faith, and we just want to see lives transformed and blessed through this ministry. So thank you so much.
And we look forward to sharing with you.
Thank you.
So that's Simon and Geraldine Parker and Parkinson. Thank you for that correction. See, got wisdom right there. I needed to make that right. No, that's important. We need to honour them and get their name right. So thank you. I did mean that sincerely.
No.
Yeah, I just was so thrilled and excited that you both were willing to do this interview with us, because this is our last official interview. We will be in the background. We will be their mentors, friends, and we'll be equipping them and guiding them. And we really believe that it's not just going to be a podcast. We really believe God's going to bring other couples along, and we can be a blessing to them.
For them to interview as well.
Well, not even that, though. Like to join and to be part of what we're doing as well, as as a fellowship too. So we've started our fellowship up again, and we're growing to the point where we're going to do it every week, but we're just building slowly as we go along. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, blessings upon you guys, and what All Father is doing with you and through you there in Australia. Blessings and shalom. May his rest, just completely wrap you up. May his face shine upon you and give you the peace. So we bless you guys greatly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your blessing too to us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Would you like to share any closing thoughts with us before I wind up this interview?
Nothing?
No.
That's a first.
Stop. It's not true. I've been very quiet lately. I see things changing in the spirit realm. I see, things changing because people are reaching out. The right people are reaching out for those that are walking through, things that are rough and tough. But I see their hearts becoming open to what we have to share and how we share it. And it's different. It's different than the way we used to share. It's not church or religion. It's about a personal relationship we have with the Father. And when you have that personal relationship and you share that with someone, they can't help but be drawn to that. Even if they don't believe at that point, that they're just drawn to it because it's the life, the light, the love, and the life of the Father, just coming out. And it's kind of, like I said, with it reminded me of something about at church where they're calling us gatekeepers, but they were talking about being open to another person, because when that person comes through the church, if you're completely open to them, they can sense it for one, but it changes them. It changes, because it was kind of like what Chris said earlier about how it changes, his going to his wife and kissing him and hugging her changed her, life for that moment. You know what I'm saying? That moment, it became a new thing. The same thing with greeting others. And I feel like the way we greet them and also talk to them about things like marriage and stuff like that, it's going to make a difference that way. I really think, because we're becoming vulnerable and they are too.
That's so good.
And I agree. I just to add to what she said, and then I'm done too. And that's true not only with others, but that's true with one another too. That openness, being willing to be open, being willing to be, if you will, laid bare before one another, and is also a key, because that's a part of the relationship and the growth of the relationship. So at least in the shortcoming aspect, those things that I need help, the places where I'm struggling and she's strong in, that's where I need to submit to her and allow her strength to help me through, and vice versa. So
What about you, darling? You want to give any closing thoughts to the interview before I wrap it up?
No, you can finish it off.
I can finish it off. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Daniel and Michelle. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sorry it's been so long.
I know it's been a while. We've been really busy though, so
Yeah.
we have been very busy.
I understand that. That's why I was really, really grateful to you both that you were willing to do this for us, because I just really could not think of a better way where we can wrap up our journey in being the hosts of Covenant Couples and handing it over to Simon and Geraldine and interviewing you both, because they are quite interested and passionate about learning about the Hebrew letters and about learning about stuff like this. And so I just knew this was just such a perfect way to wrap it up. And and just to touch on what you shared, I know people poke fun at me, and they mean it in fun. They mean it in fun, because I do use the word authentic a lot, but it's only because of what it conveys. It conveys that openness. It conveys that place where you're willing to be that portal for heaven. Because if you're open and honest and genuine and real and authentic, then life will come. Life comes from Him. Life comes from Jesus every time we choose to be authentic. So I'm going to say it right now to wrap up this amazing interview. So thank you so much once again to Daniel Cook and Michelle Cook. If you're ever interested, please, I will make sure they know about it. What is the easiest way for them to find you, just so that I can point people to your amazing ministry, guys? If you could just let us know.
We're going to start up our 2023 School of the Living Letters on January 16th. Our enrollment opens December 5th. And the best way of being able to find out either about our school or anything else that we've got going on is through our website. And it's at zimzoom.life. And that's TZIM, T as M as in Mary, TZIM, TZUM as in Mary, .life. And .life. I was spelling it out. Yes. That's the best way to reach us or find out what we've got going on. We try to keep the website up with the latest of the things that we've got going on. So,
or just reach out to me and Sharon anytime, and I'll gladly point you towards my friends.
We'll put the link on the Facebook page as well.
Yeah. All right. Oh, well, thank you so much once again, and hope this was a blessing to you. It certainly was a blessing to me.
It was
and
very
as I always
we were honored greatly.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for joining me, Sharon.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, as I always like to say at the end of every broadcast, be authentic with Jesus, because He always brings life. God bless you.
Bye.